We're now in the 17th video dealing with this skeleton model and attempting to animate it. And reviewing the last video, I couldn't help but to notice that the explanation of the process is starting to feel a little bit confused. And I like to point out that this process is going to require for people to do a little bit of figuring for themselves. And that, unlike some portions of this video, I don't think that I'm going to be able to outline this process in a totally clear, step-by-step way. And more it's describing the process and hoping that people will kind of get the gist of what I'm doing here. And what I felt is confusing is the order that I'm adding in keyframes and such, that people might not be getting a clear view. So I hope that it isn't too confusing, but at the same time I've got to say that there's a large degree of working out some of the numbers, the sort of mathematics of what we're doing here, dealing with 40 frames to create a fluid animation could possibly become confusing, especially as I move up the body into more bones. So with that said, we're going to move on, and it would seem that the next step would be to go to the spine, but I'm thinking that would be a mistake at this point, and I don't want to rotate the spine and then try to rotate the arms by even rotations in proper direction. So I'm going to rotate and animate the arms first and then go the rest of the way up the body. So to do that, I'll first drop the arms down. I'll rotate them by 80 degrees down on either side. Oops, and that was too far. And then looking at the hands are also rotated in a bad direction. So I'm going to experiment a little with how to rotate those. I could either rotate them along the global y-axis, or the local y-axis I should say, or I could try along z. And I'll try along z first and see what happens. That's not so bad. But let's see what local Y works like. And local Y is pressing the Y key twice, which sends the rotational point up and down through the bone, and is more through the bone kind of rotation. And that looks pretty good. By moving my cursor around, I can get an idea for the values that I should rotate by. So I'm thinking that between 30 and 35 degrees should be good. So I'll rotate using text to be able to rotate evenly on both sides. And that would be a minus 35 degrees on this side. And on this side, a positive. So I'll rotate, press the Y key twice to go into local, and rotate it by 35 degrees. And hopefully that'll work out. Then I'll select an arm and look at which side of the body it's on. It's on the side of the body that is going backwards. So I'll go into side view and rotate that arm backwards. I'll try by about 25 degrees and scale the arm a little bit to give it a little bit of natural bend to it. And the hand is still looking a little bit off, but I think I'm going to leave that for now and maybe look at that later. Then I'll select the other arm and rotate it forward. And again, I'm really guessing on the value to rotate this by. I'm going to try 40 degrees because the scaling is going to make it feel pulled back a lot. And I'll scale it to give a bend to the elbow. And these scalings I'm just eyeballing out. I'm not using text or anything, because this is a one-time pose, and we're going to be able to just flip it to paste it onto the other frames. And looking at the hands, they could use probably a little bit of adjusting. So I'm just going to attempt to do that more manual method. So I'll rotate it in a little bit and rotate it up a little bit. And I think I'll do the same with the backhand, just while I'm here and looking at it. Being a little bit funny looking. Try a side view with that. And that looks a little more proper. So let's look at a front view of that. And I think that looks okay. So I'm going to select all the arm and the hand, wrist bone, and I'll lock in a frame. And this frame is of course at frame 1. So I'll lock that in as a rotation and scale, because I've scaled the arms. I'll need the 2 definitions to apply here. And then I'll copy the pose. Copy current pose and advance to frame 21. I'll use the up arrow key twice. In frame 21, I'll paste that pose flipped. And this is more or less the same routine as with the legs. The arms will flip around. And I'll set another rotation scale keyframe at 21. And then I'll use the up arrow key and go to 41. And again, set the pose. This time I'll just paste the original pose to flip it back. And set in a rotation scale keyframe. And then come up into our editor and select everything. And toggle our extend mode to cyclic to make sure everything is on a cyclic setting. And then we can have a look at the animation. So we'll get an angle on that. Perhaps go into solid mode. And run that animation and see what it looks like. Well, I suppose those arms motions could be a little bit better, but they're not that bad. And, well, like I said in the start of this, I'm not going to be able to set up an absolutely perfect walk cycle, and this one isn't looking that bad. So I'm just going to have a peek at my time and see if we have enough time for the next bones. We've only really got a couple of minutes left. So I'm going to mention a problem I've been having with this animation. And I noticed when I'm framing through it that at one portion of the animation there's kind of a snap. When I go back through the animation and I play it from frame 1 to 41, at frame 41 is where this snapping is occurring. And for the life of me, I can't find the setting to fix this. And I think that there's some issue in the cyclic setting and the number of frames that is creating this snapping. I don't know, perhaps it's doing something to break the interpolation of the motion, but I'm seeing a definite point here where the hand goes fast and the leg goes fast, and there's like a snapping action at every time it hits 41 and cycles back to frame 1. I'm seeing this action. I'm trying to find a correction for it, but as yet I haven't been successful, and sometimes finding something like that in Blender, I'm sure that most people watching a video like this will know can be pretty hard to find that. But I would imagine that there's some correction that I'm overlooking and just haven't found yet. So I'll be looking for that, and hopefully we can find some method to work that funny action out. So in the next video, we'll carry on with working our way up to the head and complete this walking cycle, and perhaps have a look at different ways that it can be applied in Blender. So that'll be in the next videos, and until then, happy modeling.